Hello, everybody. Welcome to Behind Enemy Lines. As you can see, as Mike says it, I'm doing the Mike Lindell interview from a car. We're on the way to my kid's college, so my wife is driving for me while I could do this interview while we're driving. So we're going to have a very interesting guest, Dana Kennedy. She works for the Daily Mail, and for those of you that watch the show regularly, you might have seen her maybe about a year ago or less when she worked for the New York Post. And she came into Chicago and did a couple stories on the invasion of Illinois, Chicago, America, the Venezuelans. And I was fortunate enough to host her around and introduce her to some of the Chicagoan folks I know. We went to some of the shelters. We came across Trendelargua right when we were out in front of the Standard Club. Actually, we got into the Standard Club as well. I mean, they snuck in behind a Venezuelan, so we were able to get inside the shelter together. So I'm excited. Now she's at the Daily Mail, and she just came to Chicago for two stories. One that just got published this last week, and it's about the Obama, or as I call it, the Obama Library. And for those of you who are from Chicago, and I'm sure, Mike, you're familiar with it anyway, but it's just a monstrosity. It's a nasty, nasty, ugly building. They built it in the South Side, and it's an eyesore to the community members themselves. I mean, it's 5 years over budget, I guess, and it's just absurd. Yeah, it's absurd. So I can't wait to have her talk about her story. I did connect her with some of the local folks for her story that I know. I have a couple of friends, won't name their names, that are union workers that were involved in that. And I'm sure she'll talk about it and some of the cluster F that was involved with the different contractors and what the delays are associated with. I know there was suits in the beginning, and another buddy of mine talked to her about was part of that suit, trying to keep it from being built there, but they went forward with it anyway. So it's going to be interesting to hear. And then the second story that she came in, which is really kind of a crazy coincidence. So when she told me she was coming in the next day to do the Obama Library, she goes, "Yeah, I'm also going to the Wheaton Courthouse. There's a hearing for that school teacher that got caught molesting or not molesting, having a lucky boy, a hot teacher having an affair with a student, and she was there to cover that." And I'm like, "You're talking about Downers Grove South High School?" And she said, "Yeah." I go, "That's where my quick kids just graduated." And so it was just a coincidence. So she came to Chicago to cover that, and she's still working on the story, and that'll be coming out later. So anyone from Downers Grove are familiar with the story. If you have any inside G2 that we could share with Dana, please reach out to me. If you know me, call me. If not, you could go on Twitter or whatever and DM me, because she will be putting a story out on that. And I have a passion of hatred against that school district. The superintendent, the school board members are radical leftists, and pushing the porn, indoctrinating our kids. And a year prior, another teacher from Downers Grove South High School, the leftists were putting sex on our kids, was given 19 years in prison for having child pornography. That's two teachers at Downers Grove South. Isn't that kind of a coincidence?
Are there two they're investigating now also? Like, didn't a second one come forward? Let me check.
Not maybe, who knows? But there's two teachers, one that's going through the hearing process, the other one that got 19 years in prison. I wouldn't be surprised. These are the same. These are the same. This is the same school board that 4 years ago, when I first got involved in this politics, I went because of the forced masking and then because of the sexual images that are in genderqueer, the oral sex, strap-ons, kinky sex, and all that crazy stuff. And the superintendent insisted it's not pornography because it serves a underserved community. Therefore, oral sex, strap-ons being sucked is not pornography because it serves the gay community, which is absurd. And gay children are children just like my children, anyone else's children. Our kids don't have to see strap-ons being sucked in a book in the library. And then they're trying to tell us that if these gay kids are such sexual animals, that if they don't see a strap on being sucked in the library, they might commit suicide or they won't feel
Huh.
included, which is absurd. They're children, just like our children. My children shouldn't be seeing porn. No other kids should be seeing porn. It doesn't matter if you're gay or not. So these people are creeps. They're trying to sexualize, indoctrinate our children, and look what's happening. The teachers are taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
Now, the kid that was molested, I mean, he's at least he's lucky. The teacher's super hot. She's smoking hot. When she was arrested, her husband was with her, and he knew nothing about it. And this goofy teacher was telling this young kid, I think he was a junior at the time, how much she loved him and stuff. And they would be in the morning after school. It's kind of crazy, ain't it?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is going on all over the place. And yeah, I think there was another teacher that confessed to something. I'm looking for the story right now. I thought it was a second one at the same school. Maybe it's another school around Chicago. Who knows?
Oh, there's all kinds of craziness going around. Naperville, another school up, I think, in the Des Plaines area, where they had a middle school where they were forcing the kids to change with the trans kid, and making these poor girls change with the guy, and it's just absurd. I remember freshman year, just being a young freshman, having to change in front of just other guys. It was like a big thing. I was
Yeah.
scared for the first time. Can you imagine being a young girl in middle school having to change in front of a guy with a schlong in the locker room? It's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, we got this story too out of Loudoun County, Virginia. They've got another lawsuit there right now because, well, it was a woman pretending to be a man, changing in the guy's locker room. They said they were uncomfortable having her come in there, and then they suspended the two males that filed the complaint rather than doing something about the girl in the guy's locker room.
Yeah. So while we're waiting for Dana, because we're very lucky to have her, she's doing a pretty cool story right now. South Carolina. I'll let her tell you about it if she wants to. But she was just getting to her hotel, so we're burning some time. Mike, you said you did an interview before this show that something's coming out. Did you want to talk a little bit about what you interviewed and a little bit about the background of that story?
Well, yeah, we got, so we'll run this on my program. Well, real quick, first thing, so it's a Wisconsin school that had two teachers, one just arrested for having sex with a student, and then another one confessed that she was doing the same thing. So that just happened today. So these schools are...
Oh, my God. For those poor boys, I hope the teachers are hot.
Definitely not the one I just saw in the article. I don't know about the other one.
Yeah.
So maybe they were doing it to keep their grades up. But
yeah, how are their grades up? Yeah.
Yeah, so I just interviewed earlier today, and we'll run this on my program tomorrow morning at 11 Eastern. But I just interviewed Noah from Patriot Strategies. He's a political consultant. He specializes in putting together advertising programs for candidates that are running, typically on the right. But Joe Savarino reached out to him, wanted him to generate lead. Well, I don't know if it was Facebook or what it was, but wanted him to spread a fake story around about Sheriff Mendrick, who we interviewed on this program a few weeks ago. Great guy, running for governor of Illinois. But he wanted to hire his firm to spread what appears to be a fake story. Now, he told Noah he's got evidence, but he never shared it with him. It was all just word of mouth. Luckily, Noah's got detailed records of this, but wanted him to push this out on Facebook and other places that Mendrick was smoking meth with 14-year-olds.
Oh my God.
It doesn't appear to be true, but so I talked to him about that, talked to him about what's going on over there. Dana's with us now, so I'm going to get her added here.
Hello. Hey, Dana. How are you? Can you hear us? Oh, there you go. Yeah, I'm in the car. I got my little makeup light on me. I know. Thank you. We really appreciate it because we know you're in the middle of busy on a story, so we appreciate it. And I know you're probably tired, so we'll jump into the story. You know what we could do, Mike, if it's okay with you, before we have Dana do her little intro. Why don't you show that little clip that I shared with you? It talks a little bit about the library from a local community member.
What I got was an image. It wasn't a clip.
Oh, okay.
So, so
Well,
I've
you can
got
show
the
the
image.
image, and yeah, show
Okay.
the image, and then
You're gonna have to give me a
so
second. I'm getting her added on still.
yeah. Oh, okay. I can see her on the phone. So Dana, I was talking about you before you came on about how we met when you did those
Right.
great stories on the illegal immigration in the city of Chicago and our little trances around the city. And one of the things I thought was funny was when you were talking to the police officers, and right to our right was Trent Largo. You remember? Remember the guys at the Bulls hats? Like, oh my God, there they are. You're sitting there talking. I'm like, oh, there they are, right there.
Yeah, I was
You
asking
know?
if there were any of them around, and then we saw them in their whole like Chicago Bulls outfits, right?
Yeah, they're right there, like 5 feet from us. And I actually, because Dana was talking to the sergeant or whatever, and I asked one of the police officers to take a picture with me, and I'm like, it's goofing around, and the guy let me take a picture. I was kind of surprised, but it was pretty interesting. It was a very good. It was a very good story. It was and grateful because we talked about it because, you know, you mentioned the first story when I mentioned it's like it's not being pushed out on the media very much, right? And thank God that you came in because I think you were probably the biggest reporter to report on what was going on.
Well,
And
I
this,
mean, one good thing I think about the current, period that we're in, which is still kind of transitional because this Trump era is different than the previous Trump term. But it seems as though when you look at everything that's happening pop culture wise, politics, I mean, even things like Stephen Colbert getting fired, I think there is a message to people that go woke, go broke, or woke is kind of dead, or woke is sort of maybe yesterday's news. I mean, when you have people like Hillary Clinton even saying positive things, I mean, I'm couching that. I'm not saying she's a Trumper, but she said something the other day, that was almost like she felt good about that. I think we're moving away because when you say I was one of the few people to cover that in Chicago, so many news outlets were during like 2020 to 2024 were just so hardcore. I don't like to use the word woke all the time, a leftist or whatever you want to say, but they weren't covering stuff. It was, and there's always nuances. I mean, nothing is all bad and nothing is all good. So the idea of like not covering possibly the negatives of migration or illegal migration is kind of silly.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And from, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I do have that video now. I found it off your tweet, so I can run that here in a second. But yeah, I think with Hillary Clinton too, like some of these people have to be smart enough to know the winds are shifting right now. That a lot of this wokeism, it's fading away. People are running away from that in droves. People are tired of feeling like there's a gun to the back of their head all the time. That if they say the wrong thing or have the wrong opinion, they're going to get fired or they're going to get canceled or whatever else. That even
like
people
me.
on the left have had it. Yeah, even people on the left have had enough of it. And I think you are starting to see that. Now, Hillary Clinton, I kind of feel like there's probably an alternative motive if all of a sudden she's got something nice to say about President Trump. But I do think this is something you're starting to see. I mean, Anna Kasparian just had a meltdown on this on the Young Turks yesterday about both the wokeism and Gavin Newsom's inauthenticity. I've been calling him Timu Trump since he's the Wish.com version of Donald Trump now all of a sudden trying to use his style of rhetoric and speech and turn that around back on him. It's not working. People aren't buying it. They're not buying this woke nonsense. Everybody just saw what happened to Cracker Barrel. They took, what is it now? They're down, I think, $92 million in one day after their woke rebrand. So
really, oh good.
Yeah, anybody be doing a woke rebrand when everybody saw what happened to Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney? I mean, that is we just saw what happened with American Eagle jeans, and they're like that campaign was boffo, as they used to say in the 1950s, meaning it was controversial, but in a way that worked for American Eagle. It's American Eagle, right? I mean, it worked for them. So why would anybody like pull out some 2021 playbook to be woke? That seems crazy.
Oh, I know. Especially,
I'll tell you why. Working for a big
point.
corporation, how these companies work.
Go ahead, Terry.
Go ahead, man. Sorry. Yeah, working for a big corporation like that is they hired some agency. They hired some agency to help them with this, and it wasn't like it just happened this week. They've been working on it for a while, and they probably spent a lot of money because I worked for a big international consulting firm We weren't like advertising and branding, but we got into some of that stuff, and they spent a fortune on a firm to do this, right? And then the
Yeah.
executives were too ignorant to pull the plug on. They probably spent tens of millions of dollars. Oh, let's go forward with this instead of doing the right thing and saying, you know what, the timing's off. Let's start over. And they didn't want to start over, so now they're going to pay more for what they should have done in the first place and started over.
I'm always amazed at these big corporations that have high-powered consultants that don't seem to read the room in what would, to me, seem a super basic way, because that's sort of what they do. Their whole job is
Yeah.
about reading the room. And I mean, you don't want to be the creative director that came up with this woke rebrand that's going to go into the toilet. But there are many things I don't
Yeah.
understand about this world.
Well, and to both your points, I mean, look what just happened to Jaguar. They took a 97.5 percentage drop in sales last month. Do you know how many cars they sold in all of Europe last month? Give me your four cars. They sold
Why?
less than 80 globally. Well, they had that woke rebrand right after the election, and now that they have their new models out, nobody wants them.
Do you remember the video, Terry? The commercial for Jaguar? It was really quite something.
No,
Yeah,
I don't. I don't. So Dana, to your point about reading the room, I'm not supposed to say the name anymore, but I worked for one of the biggest consulting firms in the world, and I would sit with, like, we would meet with CEOs or chairmen or CIOs, and like I'd sit there with our smart consultants. I'm the sales guy, so I would joke around, say I'm lunch and entertainment. We would walk out and regroup after the meeting, and I'm like, I hear. I'm not the content guy. I'm not the strategy guy. I understand like the concepts and the words and the buzzwords, and they hear sometimes what they want to hear. I'm like, no, that's not what the guy said. What I mean, they hear what they want to hear, and I'm sitting there thinking, these guys are like, supposed to be $400 an hour consultants. I'm like, holy shit, you're not even paying attention, or you work in the sphere that you're comfortable in, right? So you have different types of functional capabilities, and so one guy does this, and he only hears it from his perspective, and I'm like, that's not what the client said, and I think that's what happened with this advertising debacle.
Yeah.
Wow. I've been on the road. I'm in South Carolina on another story. I actually miscracked the Cracker Barrel thing. I can imagine from what you're saying, but literally you're away from X or something for a day, and there's a whole new debacle that has sprung up.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Tell me about it. Yeah, I quit paying attention to X for 24 hours over the weekend, and all of a sudden I'm surprised with everything when I'm putting stories together for Monday morning.
Yeah, it moves very fast.
Oh, and it seems
So,
like
Mike,
it's
you want to
increased
show
exponentially.
You want to
Yeah,
show
like
the video, and then we could jump in and talk about Dana's new story.
Sounds good. Here we go.
A big piece of rock, kind of right in the middle of what used to be Jackson Park, full of like lush flowers, trees, and just beautiful. And all of a sudden, here you've got this big monstrosity. It's over budget. It took way too long to build, and it's ugly.
So that was a quick little one. So I'll just hand it off to you, Dana, because you probably did more research and know more about it than what I do, just living in the city and stuff. And you talk to so many people. So why don't you share your version of the story and some of the things that stood out that you learned as you were writing the story?
Well, that was just what to say. That video clip we saw, that was a young man, not that young, he's 39, a young lawyer in Chicago named Ken Woodard, who is a wonderful guy, who told me, for example, that he dreamed of being like Obama back in 2008, 2009. I voted for Obama myself. We all had a lot of hopium. And he was sort of one of many, actually, people of color in Chicago I spoke to who were upset about this Obama Presidential Center. It's actually not called a library, and I don't want to get too wonky, but most of the presidential centers, once the president's out of office, are called libraries. And the Reagan Library, from what I understand, I haven't been to it, is kind of a perfect example of this. The Obama Center sounds a lot more kind of, what's the word?
Like a community center.
Community center, but I think also very much of the Obama world, meaning everything is going to be digitized. His actual records and documents, which that's what presidential libraries were for, are going to be actually held at the National Archives. They'll be preserving those those documents, but they won't be at the presidential center. And there are a lot of people that like the idea of being able to go to a presidential library and actually see the real documents. You won't be able to here.
Yeah.
It'll be digitized. But the real problem a lot of people have with, and again, it's not up yet. It's supposed to have a soft launch in April 2026. I'm not going to say that it's going to be a disaster once it opens, because like everything else, people will probably adapt to it. There are activists, at least 3 activist groups in Chicago that are, up the Obama Center grill, basically making sure they do things right. They're not happy with how things have been done so far, but they are pushing. I'm not going to say this is a complete eyesore and a disaster. It's not necessarily. It hasn't even opened yet. But the problem with it that many people have is that it's way over budget. It's heading in at $850 million right now. It was supposed to be done several years ago. People have a real problem with the brutalist looking architecture. Now, I was told that strictly speaking, it's not brutalist, but everybody refers that way. It looks Soviet in its,
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't look like a place that you really want to hang out in. Again, it's going to have flowers and landscaping. I'm not trying to say it's going to be a total disaster, but the thing that really struck me, you guys, was I spoke to, for example, a construction worker who worked on the site for 18 months. And he's a white guy, but he's like a white ethnic. He's an Italian guy from the South Side, which is where this is being built. And for those people that don't know Chicago, South Side is the grittier part of Chicago, right? It's also where the hood is and all of that. There are some lovely areas, but it's mixed, and parts of it are very, very dangerous. And they insisted on having people of color be the firms that contracted to do this. And it was under the umbrella of a minority owned firm, even though they did have a big sort of quote unquote, regular construction company that was not a DEI, but they were very into DEI. And this construction worker told me that during his 18 months on the site, he and his fellow construction workers had to sit through not 1, not 2, but 3 90-minute DEI workshops. And that, I guess your audience knows what that means: diversity, equity,
Oh,
and
yeah.
inclusion. And this guy, I'll let you talk in a second, but this guy was saying to me, he's from the South Side. It's not like he just flew in from Norway, and he had to sit in and listen to, he said, you should go up to your fellow workers in color and ask them how they're feeling. And these are construction workers.
Yeah, right.
So, that's what I'm saying. I think this is a very Obama, frankly, a very circa 2020, 2017 kind of wokeness that he's keeping with this center.
Of course.
And
I'm sure there's a land acknowledgement when you go in the door. You've got to probably sign off on, that this library was built on stolen land and all the other usual nonsense we see. But I watched Benny Johnson was out there a few days ago interviewing people, asking people that live in the neighborhood, this is going up, like what they thought about it. And there wasn't one person that thought this was amazing or it was a beautiful structure or it would add to whatever. They talked about it being way over budget, problems with the construction companies, that it was just, a hideous building. And there didn't seem to be anybody in the neighborhood that liked it. And, maybe they found somebody and just didn't put that in the reel, but still, you're definitely getting the same impression from everybody.
And one of the things, you guys, that people spoke to me a lot about, and again, the majority of people that I spoke to were African Americans. They are concerned, and it's more than concern, it's already happening, about the effects of gentrification. Property taxes in the area are already going up. And again, for, where I come from in New York, a 1-bedroom apartment is going to run you about $4,000 a month, unless it's in a very, very bad area. And they are getting 1-bedrooms for like $900, and they're jumping up to $2,200. There's they might be, I don't know this for sure, it might be demolishing some buildings to put up bigger condos. And a friend of Obama's has a plan for a massive hotel complex in the same area. So these activist groups, some of the activist groups are for the center, and it's very difficult because it's Chicago and the Democratic machine that's it. You can't be a Republican. You can't, and you really can't come out against Obama. And I also understand why they wouldn't want to. I mean, he was the first Black president. There's a lot of good things that you can say about him and his center and all that. But they're saying that he's all about supposedly helping people of color, but the very community that he's trying to help, at least some of the people that I spoke to, said he could be pushing them out.
Yeah. Well, he most certainly will be. Sorry, Terry, go ahead.
No, I said yes, and I forgot what I was going to say. I'm not going to lie. I
You're
lost
not
my
supposed
train
to
of
be
thought.
running around rural
We
South
we
Carolina all day talking to people, right?
we just got off the highway, so I was like, sorry. So go ahead, Mike, while I'm regaining my train of thought.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think you're both. I think you're right. Like gentrification is almost something that is most certainly going to happen, if not now, then after the structure is completed. Because, like you said, I was well aware of Obama's buddy that wants to put up the hotel complex. They'll probably have other buildings that go up that are similar, things that are for the elite, and that will force others out of the neighborhood, or make pricing go up to the point where nobody can can live there anymore. To your point, Dana, because we've seen that on. So I actually used to do construction staffing before I got into political media, and this was something that was big that was going on in Cincinnati at the time, where they were doing this build up along where the stadiums are near the river. Well, that butts up against the war zone in Cincinnati on Vine Street. Well, this was jacking up prices. They were tearing down the neighborhoods, and they weren't doing anything to solve the crime problem, but it was making it even more expensive for everybody to live there. And it's kind of funny, after the fact, they have this
10 minutes.
neighborhood that's a literal war zone there, and then 2 blocks away, you have these new apartments going in for all the hipsters. Well, they're getting their groceries stolen at knife point because they never did anything to fix the crime. They're paying $3,000 a month for rent, and the neighborhood is too violent for anybody to stay in.
That's a nightmare. Listen, I also remember another thing that the construction worker told me. In addition to having to sit down for these DEI workshops, and again, what was so strange about the DEI workshops is that these guys are from, or a lot of the guys on the construction site were from the South Side of Chicago. So the idea that they had to sit down and learn about people of color that they grew up with is fairly unusual. He also told me that every now and then staffers from the Obama Foundation, because the Obama Foundation is bankrolling this whole thing with help from Jeff Bezos, George Soros, the usual suspects, right? And occasionally they come down from the Obama Foundation, which is in downtown Chicago, with clipboards and go up to each one of these construction workers and say verbatim, are you straight? Are you gay? Are you trans? What color are you? To their faces. And these are, I'd like to be a fly on the wall with a Chicago construction worker being asked.
I'd love to answer that question so I could tell him I identify as a left-handed pansexual leprechaun and just see what they put me down as.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Southwest side, not quite as gritty as the South side, a little less gritty, but and my dad worked for the city of Chicago, all unions, and I could imagine sitting through that DEI crap. Holy cow! I can't believe the guy sat there silently, right, or without cracking jokes or being sarcastic.
I'm assuming that maybe, I don't know how it works. These are union guys, right? But maybe they could have lost their jobs. It sounds like they had to sort of buckle down and do it.
Yeah.
But on top of everything else, it's going, as I understand. Obviously, there's always cost overruns and things are delayed. That's not the most unusual thing in the world. But this has been quite delayed, and
it's like 5 years.
Sit down for a workshop about other people's feelings is kind of crazy. But I did want, if I could briefly mention, I followed this story up with another story about someone who's become a friend of mine over the years. We'll just ignore my phone, and and his name is the Reverend Corey Brooks. He's known as the rooftop pastor in Chicago. He has a church and his own training center on one of the most dangerous blocks on the South Side. And he's now building a center across the street. He's so far raised $47 million. It's going faster than the Obama Center. And he hasn't, because he's Republican, he's conservative, whatever that even means these days. He hasn't gotten a dime from the Democratic machine in Chicago, Black Lives Matter, or the Obama Foundation. And he has asked because and I have to say, I've been there. I've been there 3 times. I've seen what he's building. I've talked to the people he's helping. He's giving kids from the streets a trade. He's preaching to them. He's going to walk across America beginning in September from Times Square to California. And, he gets, I write him up, other people do, but he doesn't have the cachet of Obama. And even one of the councilwomen I spoke to, I won't mention her name right now, and she's in Chicago, and she knows him. And you can tell that she kind of likes him. But when she talked to me, she sort of had to act like she didn't in a way. And she was laughing. But it's because he's a Republican in Chicago. But he's doing such good work. And my story was about how, he's not getting any woke cookies from anybody.
Yeah, I love Corey. He's a great guy. He really is. And, some of them consider him an Uncle Tom or a sellout or whatever. And that's the push from the Democrat side, right?
Well,
They're
how is
just
he a
trying.
sellout? I mean, he's just
Yeah,
living his life down. He's not working for the white guy.
yeah,
He's working for
yeah,
himself. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And he's on. It's called O Block. O
right.
Block, right where his facility is and his church and stuff. And that was really really bad in the area of which he's in. I mean, he's doing a lot for the community, and he's a great speaker. I really like the guy a lot.
He's definitely not. And he's well, and what he told me is he's the other reason they don't like him is he's very about he doesn't go along with the whole victim thing, and he doesn't go
Yes.
along with the whole white guilt thing. And he says, yeah, things aren't equal. They rarely are for anybody. Yeah, and people of color have it worse, but he's not about being a victim, and that's why I admire him.
Hmm.
Oh
Was
yeah.
there any when you were doing the story, is there anything that caught you off guard or surprised or you didn't expect anything? I'm sure that happens in some stories. Some maybe sometimes not, but I'm just curious. Anything that stood out from your story?
Well, to be really honest, I didn't know that much about this. It was my editor who assigned me this story, and which happens sometimes. We do both, right? And again, we're not, if you live in New York, you're kind of focused on New York, and you're not focused on what's happening in other cities that much.
Sure.
But I think one reason why I hadn't heard about it was maybe because there are some issues with it, and that there are aspects. And again, I keep couching this because it may come out and it may be a boon to the community. I don't know. But I feel as though once I looked into it, I was shocked. First of all, how bad it looked to me. It looked I mean, I've been in Eastern Europe, and it
Yeah,
reminded me a little of that. It's the opposite of feeling like you go to Corey Brooks's place and you feel so welcome and warm, and you go there and it's this big,
yeah,
it's just so big, and there are no. I remember one guy I was talking to kept saying, "Where are the windows? I don't know why there aren't any windows there in the building." So I was surprised at its bulk and its
yeah,
height and its Soviet-esque type of thing. And I was also surprised, call me naive, when people told me, these activist groups told me how much it may really hurt the community, because that really seems the biggest irony of all, that all this talk is given to diverse, it's all talk, but then
hmm
the people in the area might get screwed because of it.
yeah. What it remind me of is one of the federal metropolitan correctional centers they have downtown Chicago and New York. Ever see? I see how the one in Chicago is like a triangle. It's this big, ugly thing with no windows. And that's what it remind me of, is like a federal correctional center in the city.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I'll come back and do a story when it's all up and running. And it could be, I guess the optimistic view is maybe the people in the community will somehow force it to become theirs, that they're there and they'll take advantage of what they can take advantage of and all that. But it does, as somebody said to me, it does look like a monument to President Obama's ego. And it does look that way.
Wow. Wow. Um, so you didn't get to like physically go inside or anything,
You
right? I
can't.
mean,
No, they wouldn't let you go inside. No, we flew a drone over it to get photos from
ah,
above. And you can really, if you look at my article, you can really see the scope of it, because that's the other thing. I also didn't realize that Chicago was known for its beautiful architecture. I spent a lot of time in Chicago in the last few years. I hadn't before that. And there are so many beautiful museums and all that. And they're much more seamlessly integrated, in my opinion, into the landscape. This one just kind of
Yeah.
comes
It's
up
out
out
of
of nowhere.
nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've ever seen the Bears Stadium. Have you seen that?
No.
Soldiers Field. So they spent a fortune. It's right on the lake, and I don't know how many years it's been now to remodel it. So Soldiers Field, I think it was done around 1920 or something, right? Soldiers dedicated for them.
Sounds about right.
And then they had this architect that developed and modernized it, and they should have maybe just fixed it up and cleaned it and all that. It looks like a half a spaceship landed into Soldiers Field. It's one of the ugliest things. I can't believe that most people in Chicago say the same thing. It's got this modern spaceship architecture on top of this big, beautiful Soldier Field stadium that was built in the 20s, and it looks awful. Outside of that, all the other architecture and stuff's pretty cool. The stuff that was built around the turn of the centuries
Yeah, that
is
stuff is just absolutely gorgeous. But they're going to have to throw a lot of gardens up around the Obama Center and really soften it, and hopefully do something for the people that live around there. So they're not all sent elsewhere, and yuppies and elite people, as you were saying, move in.
Yeah, being that's on the south side, they might have kept the windows out on purpose, so they kept people from being shot through the windows. It's a joke, bad joke.
Well, there's some truth to that. But yeah, that's the problem with a lot of this, like modern architecture now. It's just concrete and glass. I wish we would get back to stuff that was, more orientated towards beauty. The old Art Deco buildings, the things like that. Something that actually had some personality to it instead of just being concrete, steel, glass, brutalist. Junk, soul crushing.
I lived in France for 15 years. It was very hard to move back here. I have a friend that left here, and he calls himself an aesthetic refugee because he couldn't take some of the hideous architecture in the U.S. anymore. But that seems to be the style they like. I guess it takes too long to build a cathedral like Chartres.
Yeah. So before we let you get some rest, one before you jumped on, I talked a little bit about that other story that you're going to maybe work on in the future. It was a coincidence where my kids went to that school. Isn't it? And so I talked a little bit about the teacher and the student and the other teacher that actually got 19 years for having child porn in the same school, which is really weird to have two teachers within a year and a half get arrested for sexual type behavior. And then while we have these teachers and superintendent, school board pushing porn and trying to normalize it, and I think this is what ties into some of that stuff because they normalize it.
Yeah, we were talking about this story, and Terry, the thing is, there's a lot of, we call them dirty teachers. I mean, every other day, whether it's the Daily Mail, the New York Post, you're seeing these dirty teacher stories. I mean, it's like an epidemic. And I got to tell you, when you said that to me, because in 2020, 2021, I did a lot of stories. It was post George Floyd, when everybody really went nuts in the schools, and they basically kicked out the regular curriculum and brought in, everything they could, allegedly anti-racism stuff, and everything about teaching children that there are 30 genders and all that. And Terry, you said to me that you felt, when we talked, there are very notorious books that have, like a book called Gender Queer, that has populated all of a sudden out of the blue for the last 5 years, all these like middle school libraries. And you're the one that said to me, I think that focus on gender and sex and identity and all these books showing, I mean, Gender Queer is pretty graphic. And you wonder, I don't know if that's true, but I felt that was a really astute analysis, Terry.
Yeah. And like, because we talked before you came on, it's like, you got the gay, LGBTQ and gay children, you got my children, heterosexual children, and it's the teachers and the superintendents are saying, these kids have to see this. If they don't see it, they're not going to feel included. If they don't see it, they're going to commit suicide. The suicide rate's higher with these type of kids. Well, it's a lie. They're children, just like my children, right? My children, boy girl twins, neither one of them say, hey, I got to go see some sex today or I won't feel like the rest of the kids. I mean, it's crazy, right? If you think about how absurd it is, it's these whack jobs telling us that these kids will commit suicide or not feel included if they don't see this kinky oral sex stuff. And it just doesn't make any common sense.
No, it doesn't make any common sense. And if you look at some of the stats, that trope about children will commit suicide if you don't acknowledge that they're trans or acknowledge this and that, there's a lot of faulty data to that. It's become a trope, like, oh, if you don't do this, your child will commit suicide. But that, first of all, how do you even quantify that in such a recent history? So
So I before you got on too, as I said, anyone from the Downers Grove area have G2 for us or inside information, either call me if you know me or send me a DM so we can connect you and share whatever you might have at that Downers Grove South High School, which by Charlie Kirk's TPUSA was named one of the most radical school boards in the United States of America.
Wow, I didn't know that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Not surprising then. And they have two different teachers that got sent up. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so any last? Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, real quick, you said, it's like, I know you're on a delay. But you mentioned this is like an epidemic with teachers, and it really is. People think there's a problem with the churches, with priests and whatever, but like per capita, there are far more teachers caught every year molesting students, involved with students, sleeping with students, exploiting students but it's swept under the rug. There's literally hundreds of former teachers still on payroll with the union in New York that were released, can't teach, but haven't been charged criminally for this kind of misconduct, but the unions protect them. The local media doesn't cover the stories the same way. They want to downplay it as much as possible, but it really is an epidemic that's going on in our grade schools and our high schools right now, and we won't even get into the college professors because I'm sure that's probably even worse.
Yeah. If you saw that teacher at Downers Grove South High School, I'm sure that boy's not suffering very much. That's a bad joke, but he's not having nightmares. He's probably crying at his matol on him. But well, thank you. Do you have any last statements, Dana? Or
I don't think so. I just, but I think it's, I guess in a way, what surprised me was the idea that there are these two centers in Chicago that are being sort of led by men of color. And the one that I think is really important is the Reverend Brooks, not to take away from who Barack Obama is, the first Black president. And a lot of the people in Chicago I spoke to that are people of color, he means a lot to a lot of people. I get it. But, I just wish he could just be, maybe who he is, or like Corey Brooks. That to me, and I really admire Pastor Brooks for doing what he's doing and raising his money without the big billionaires helping him.
Yeah, and my big takeaway is, his center is actually going to benefit the community, whereas Obama's center is going to glorify Barack Obama's ego and legacy. And it really is polar opposites. And then they're so close together. One's way over budget, the other one's being built on a shoestring budget, but at least it's getting done. It just kind of shows you where we are as a country right now.
All right, thanks,
we have the
you
wrong
guys.
heroes.
Thank you very much, Dana. Appreciate it. I know you're tired,
okay?
so thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye. All right, Mike.
Well,
I'm sitting in the parking lot. We don't have to do our hour today. The wife left me here. The son's in with the cut. I got to bring the suitcases in.
Yeah. You got to be careful. They don't lock you out of the hotel room.
So when are you going to release that really cool interview that you had today?
Well, we'll run it on the show tomorrow, and then afterwards, I'm going to tweet it out by itself, freestanding. I don't know if we'll run it at the beginning or the end of the show. Kind of depends. I've got a guest that we want to spend some time with, so we'll probably run it towards the end of the program. But yeah, great interview, and then we'll put it up solo by itself right after the show. Yeah,
because I think NBC. I think you'll beat NBC. I think they're going to come out tomorrow because the new development that you told me about was the threats that was being sent to this clown to the young man that owns the company for telling the truth. He's being threatened, right? I mean, you said that happened right before you jumped on the air.
Yeah, Noah texted me right before I was running a couple minutes late, or thought I was going to be late. Ended up being on time, but I thought I was running late, so I texted him telling him it was going to be a few minutes before I'd have the link over to him, and he said, you won't guess who reached out to me 30 minutes ago threatening to sue me. So I just responded back, LOL, of course.
Yeah, this guy's a clown.
Yeah.
Well, I'll look forward to seeing it, and obviously I'll repost it for you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks, Dana, for jumping on. I know how it is when you're out working out on the road and back in your hotel, so appreciate it.
Thanks again, guys. We'll be back on Tuesday with even more.